Earlier that morning, confused, I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. She paused and asked what time I had left. 7:40. Like always, I replied. She then told me that around 8 or 8:30, she heard footsteps upstairs. In the summer of 2007, when my mother's best friend died in a tragic car accident. After her passing, her family gave my mother several of her personal belongings, and my mother also kept a hubcap from the accident. Months later, after everything had settled down, my mom began acting strangely. She used to sleep with her bedroom door open, but suddenly she started keeping it closed. She also began asking my older sister and me to sleep in her room with her. We decided to take turns, although at the time we didn't understand why she had become so afraid. Eventually, she told us what had happened. One night, after waking up from a nightmare in a panic, she noticed a figure standing in the hallway outside her bedroom door. She said it simply stood there, staring at her for several minutes, before turning around, walking past the railing, and disappearing downstairs. Neither my sister nor I had experienced anything ourselves, so we continued taking turns sleeping in our mother's room. As summer passed, there were no more sightings, and eventually things returned to normal. By the start of the new school year, I was in 7th grade and my sister was in 9th. Around the same time, my mother had gotten a boyfriend, and my grandmother moved in with us. Life seemed normal again, and my mother no longer asked us to sleep in her room. One weekend, 4 of my cousins stayed over, 2 boys and 2 girls. During a conversation, the oldest boy brought up my mother's best friend and said he wanted to try contacting her. None of us wanted any part of it. We thought it was creepy, especially considering where we lived. The property had once been a Japanese internment camp during World War II, and after the homes were built, people in the neighborhood often spoke about strange experiences. We had encountered weird things ourselves, but never really talked about them. We eventually moved on and went back to doing normal kid things. Meanwhile, my cousin stayed behind in the room with a picture of my mother's friend and a candle. A little while later, he came running downstairs in a panic. He said that while trying to contact her, he suddenly got a terrible feeling and stopped. We were all upset because we had agreed not to do anything like that. Eventually, everyone went home, and for a while, nothing happened. Then Christmas came. Every year, we celebrated Christmas at my aunt's house. We had already opened our presents at home, and my mother made my sister and me put our gifts in our bedrooms because she didn't want the living room cluttered. Her boyfriend, John, stayed home because he and my aunt didn't get along. We returned around 11 p.m. and immediately noticed that the entire house was dark. John had barricaded himself inside my mother's room. When he heard us come in, he rushed downstairs looking pale and terrified. My mother asked him what was wrong, and he told us that about an hour after we left, he was making himself a plate of food in the kitchen. As he walked back toward the bedroom, he heard noises coming from my sister's room. At first, he assumed she had stayed home. He called her name, but there was no answer. As he approached the door, he could clearly hear someone rummaging through her bags of Christmas gifts, as though they were searching for something. He called her name again and again, but still no answer. He tried to open the door, only to realize it was locked. That made no sense. The bedroom doors could only be locked from the inside, and my sister's room was on the 2nd floor. Her windows had bars that could only be opened from inside the house. Suddenly, the rummaging stopped. John said a heavy feeling washed over him, sending chills throughout his body. He ran across the hall into my mother's bedroom and locked the door. Moments later, he watched the doorknob begin to jiggle violently, as though someone was trying to get in. He called out several times, but no one answered. He turned the television up as loud as he could and stayed locked in the room until we arrived home. We all went upstairs, and my sister opened her bedroom door with ease, as though it had never been locked. Every gift and every belonging was exactly where she had left them. Nothing had been touched. No one ever talked about it again. Spring came, and life seemed normal once more. My grandmother was still living with us. One morning, my sister left for high school around 6. My mother left around 7 for work, and I left for school at 7:40 as usual. My grandmother stayed home. When I got home around 2:30 that afternoon, I found my grandmother wrapped up on the couch beneath a blanket. As soon as I walked in, she called my name. I answered from the kitchen, and I heard her sigh with relief. She immediately began asking me why I had left for school so late and why I had ignored her. Earlier that morning, confused, I told her I had no idea what she was talking about. She paused and asked what time I had left. 7:40. Like always, I replied. She then told me that around 8 or 8:30, she heard footsteps upstairs. She thought it was strange because she knew I should have already been gone. She called my name, asking why I hadn't left for school yet, but there was no answer. Thinking I was trying to scare her, she became annoyed and kept calling out to me. Eventually, she heard footsteps moving down the hallway and then coming down the stairs. She said something felt wrong. The footsteps sounded exactly like mine because, as a kid, I dragged the backs of my jeans when I walked, but these footsteps were slower. She called my name again. No answer. Terrified, she wrapped herself tightly in a blanket and covered her head. She said she heard the footsteps approach the couch and stop directly beside her. She could feel something standing over her, almost as though it wanted her to look. But she refused. She stayed wrapped up beneath that blanket for hours, until I got home from school. When she told my mother, my mom acted as though she had no idea what she was talking about, despite the incidents that had already happened. I finally told my mother that I thought something strange had started after my cousin tried contacting her best friend. Maybe, somehow, he had invited something else into the house. My mother was furious when she found out what he had done. After that, things calmed down for a while, but eventually strange things started happening again. Dishes would fall in the kitchen. We constantly heard footsteps wandering around the house. My mother eventually couldn't take it anymore and decided to get rid of all of her best friend's belongings, believing they were keeping whatever it was attached to our home. She was wrong. Over the years, the activity gradually faded, at least until I got into high school. One night, I woke up unable to move. I could only move my eyes. I felt an unbearable pressure on my back, while ringing and whispering filled my ears. The experience lasted for what felt like 5 minutes. I never told anyone. Everyone thought things had gone back to normal, and I didn't want to bring it all up again. Eventually, we moved out of that house, and the strange experiences stopped completely. To this day, I still believe my cousin opened a door that should have stayed closed. Whether it was because of what he tried to do, or because there was already something in that house waiting to be noticed, I'll never know. But whatever it was, I know one thing for certain: it never felt human.